What up, YouTube? So I'm gonna jump right in. I told you guys I was gonna do a video on these guys. This is the guy Marquette Devon, the guy Cooley, and Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. Now these dudes are all, you know, uh, super friends. They these guys here, Cooley and Marquette, has sworn allegiance to the guy Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit, who is um, a Somalian who hates FBA ADOS, right? So he hates, African Americans, descendants of slaves, foundational Black Americans, whatever you want to call it. He has known hatred for them. Now these two, I believe, claim to be non-immigrants. They claim to be FBA ADOS. Two very interesting characters, and I'm just going to break down the whole thing. So this all started with this interview on Piers Morgan, and um, I'm going to let a little bit of this play, and we're going to get into it. So let's go.
And then he's gonna have no, he's gonna go ahead and look into it, like, who is this guy? Okay, let me reach out. So that's one way to do it. The other way is, keep grinding. We got this podcast that we just started called The Commission. This is our first episode with many more to come. So we putting in that work, but with y'all support, we'll get there. Things will be accomplished. Okay. Let's see. Let's continue on with this internal critique. I think he's just about done too.
To be clear, you would have no problem with one member of this panel openly.
Okay, yeah, he was done with that. So now we'll just play it from here and continue to react to the channel. Hey, Marquette, good breakdown, bro.
I appreciate that. And you got to ignore the dimwits, because what they really are, they're devils and agents of destruction. They're trying to destruct what we're doing. If you don't like.
Let me say that, speaking of agents, let me say that I totally believe that these three dudes right there that you're seeing are agents, like federal, like government agents. And the reason I say they're government agents is because it's a known fact, I believe, that Myron Gaines was working for a federal agency prior to the whole Fresh and Fit thing, right? I believe he said that on his show. I think I saw him say that myself, where people said that where he said himself that he worked for a federal agency. And right before he started the Fresh and Fit podcast. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay. And then it's funny that he brought up agents of destruction, which I think these three are agents, right? Are federal agents. And, or not, let's say, in a sense of, I'll just say agents, right? They are agents. And they're plants and agents, right? And I'm going to point out why. Well, I just pointed out why. One reason is the fact that Myron Gaines worked for a federal agency prior to the whole Fresh and Fit. The other point is that these two on your screen, these two so-called FBA, ADOS, whatever, have sworn allegiance to him. No matter what he does, right, they sworn allegiance to this guy. Now, that's an extremely strange position, to swear allegiance to some immigrant Somali who is extremely hostile to your particular ethnic group. There's no other, and this is something weird about black people. You don't find like the white Jewish people or even white Germans or any other group of people that would swear allegiance to another particular ethnic group and go against their own people. But these two guys, Cooley and this guy Marquette, have done that. That's the first point I want to make. They've basically sworn allegiance to this guy. And everybody sees, this is public, so everybody sees what Myron Gaines has done. They've seen him wear KKK hoods. They've seen him talk about black women, black people from the, American descendant of slave community, right? Which these two guys come from. They've seen that. And they given him a pass and basically sworn allegiance to this guy. If they're not agents, I don't understand what this is about. But it's the only thing I could think of was like, this got to be like these three guys are plants and agents, particularly because dude used to work for the I think Homeland Security, and so it's some kind of operation, some kind of agent operation going on with these three guys. That's the only thing that makes sense. Also, Cooley's married to a white woman, right? Let me point that out real quick. So, Cooley, total hypocrite and a liar, right? He told guys on his, listen, don't date single mothers. He then went on to date a single mother, and then I believe tried to cover it up and had children with her and is probably married to her. And it's a white woman, right? But then they're speaking on like black issues. I guess you can do that, but it's just weird, right? The whole thing starts to look weird, right? When you have these proponents of interracial marriage, but then on one hand, they're saying, what these people doing are racist, and what Myron Gaines is doing is basically xenophobic against black Americans, descendants of slaves, but then they support, Myron Gaines and swear allegiance to this guy, right? And it's like extremely weird, you know what I mean? Like we're brother, we tight, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's weird. But anyway, so I'm gonna play some more of this. Let's get into it.
Like the way we're running the show, watch a different show. Because it's never the people who are super chatting, it's never the people who really support. These are just detractors. Because if they really want to see that video without any pauses, they can just go watch the original video.
Go right to the original video.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's facts.
you got to keep your eyes on the prize. These people are out here being devils.
Let's continue on.
He's saying she uses the N-word at black people with impunity and is proud of being a racist. You have no problem with that?
My worldview on the protection of the First Amendment and freedom of speech overrides my
not the
personal feelings. She
question.
has the right to say
That's
it,
fine.
and I'll
You can support.
Yeah, that wasn't the question at all. Let's bring it back real quick. I want to hear that again one more time.
That's awesome. Am I saying that's great? No, but for literally the better part of almost 2 decades since the Obama era, we've had to have BLM and liberalism. Feelings. She has. My feelings are irrelevant. The Constitution is the Constitution. That's what matters.
Oh, that's fascinating. Hold on. So when it comes to chastising black Americans about their behavior, about calling white people crackers, as you say, about their moral claims about the racist system, you can levy a judgment against black Americans for all the things they do. But when it comes to this woman saying.
Hold up. You know what? I'm going to rewind it back a little bit more just so we get all of that because it kind of skipped ahead a little bit. So we had 8:13. Let's go back to this area.
When it comes to
And while you're doing that, shout out to Mont. He writes, she went viral for saying the N-word in a song like Cooley spoke about, not hard R. Then I'm sure an onslaught of black folk and liberal tried to ruin her life. She's chosen darkness because darkness accepted her. Okay. Shout out to Alex. He writes, you're 100% right. I'm Italian American with roots in Italy less than 60 years ago. I do not have white pride. F them racists. And that makes perfect sense because he has a real culture. You know what I'm saying? And the funny thing is, for those who are not sophisticated, they talk about like white power. If you actually go to Europe, you might talk to the French, and the French don't like anybody. The British don't like the French. The Albanians aren't considered white. It's like everyone has their own group. Like white basically means
freedom of speech overrides my personal feelings. She has the right to say
That's
it.
fine. You can support the First Amendment, but you can also have a personal view about what she said.
My feelings are irrelevant. The Constitution is the Constitution. That's what matters.
Oh, that's fascinating. Hold on. So when it comes to chastising black Americans about their behavior, about calling white people crackers, as you say, about their moral claims about the racist system, you can levy a judgment against black Americans for all the things they do. But when it comes to this woman saying the N-word, and this other woman endorsing it and saying that she herself uses the N-word, now all of a sudden we can only talk about the Constitution and the legal right. We can't offer any moral judgment against it. That's disingenuous. And it's as the only black American up here, that's quite frustrating to hear.
I'll pause it right there. I'm going to be honest. I do not like Mark Lamont Hill. I think that he's educated, but he's a male feminist, and he truly believes that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. And I don't even know why he's speaking about, these terms. I don't know why he's harping on the N-word, because the N-word has a meaning, right? But mind you, he believes that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, which he extract the meaning from man and woman.
Right.
But when some people use the N-word, they do extract that negative meaning from it. So he knows that some white people, and even him, he uses the N-word where he extracts the meaning from it, where it's like, it's almost meaningless, is because it's like, yo, what up, my nigga? It's almost like saying, hey, what up, Brian? You get what I'm saying? Like if you are calling another black person that. So he's able to extract the meaning out of a word, but then when it comes to his liberal ideas, man and woman, well, let's not extract the meaning out of those words and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? So it's a little weird. As Myron, where Pierce asked him a question and Myron he didn't really answer it directly at all. He kind of moved on to something else. And then Mark Lamont Hill was checking him on it like, wait, I find it funny how you can, have a judgment on, black people, BLM riots and all of this stuff, and black people saying these words, cracker and all of this, but you can't place a judgment on, Shiloh and what she did. Why can't you place a judgment? Instead, Myron appealed to one of the amendments of freedom of speech. So hopefully he gives a good response back to this, and let's see.
If you want to be soft and get offended by that, that's your fucking problem, not mine.
Let me ask Ricky.
We're not even.
Let me ask Ricky. Ricky, I want to.
Right then and there, I would give it to Mark Lamont Hill. He didn't get offended. He was actually using logic. Like, wait a second.
Right.
You placing judgment here. Why aren't you placing judgment there? So let's continue on.
This isn't about being soft any more than when you were desperately saving these white people.
Hold on. This sensitive nature that you have is precisely why we have this problem.
It's not about being sensitive. It's about I didn't articulate. Hold on. Let me finish, Myron. Let me speak and then I'll let you respond. Myron, sure. I didn't articulate any sensitivity here. What I said, in the same way that you levied a judgment against black people, I'm levying.
Let's be honest. This nigga is being sensitive. He using some logic right there, but he is sensitive. Let's be honest.
One against the claims you're making. I'm no more sensitive than you were when you made your claim. I'm simply saying I disagree with you.
Myron.
And to immediately jump to your being sensitive is just a distraction. I'm making an argument here. Just respond to my argument.
If you're struggling with sleep,
chill, chill, Pierce. All right, let's skip ahead. Let's go right here.
Now, and my argument to respond to that is this: political correctness, liberalism, and making sure that we are politically correct and don't use certain words that offend people is precisely why we're in the situation that we're in. For decades, we've had to literally tiptoe around saying certain things around certain people, while the other group of people has been able to have impunity and be able to be as racist as they want to be, as violent as they want to be, without any type of consequence. And if you call it out, you're labeled a racist. The reality is that
the level of stupidity of this, I'm not saying Myron is stupid. We all know better than that. He's an intelligent guy, but he clearly has some emotional and psychological things that put him, that make him argue for a certain position, and maybe even financial reasons too. And I say that, with full love and respect for him as an individual. But what he said was just so ludicrous. It was patently ludicrous in as much as he said, certain groups have been.
There you have it. So where he said he has so much love and respect for Myron Gaines. Let's stop that right there. After the disrespect that this man shows for black Americans, and the disdain and the xenophobic hatred, right? What does God have to do with the devil, right? Why would these two so-called ADOS FBA guys, right, be having so much love and respect and call Myron intelligent? I'm just saying, I haven't got an answer to that. I would love to get an answer to that. The only thing I could think of with these three stooges are just that, stooges, they agents. What do you think, right? I'm pointing this out because I want people to see, right? Like, I'm not just like being, just throwing out insults or whatever to these guys, right? I actually, want to like, I want to like these guys, man. Really, like, I want to, everybody, not Myron. I would never fuck with nobody like that, ever. Right? Like, you know what I'm saying? He'd catch hands quick. Dude like him, yeah, I'd be there insulting him. We'd be getting into it. But the other two dudes, they ADOS. I want to like these dudes. But the fact that these two dudes are hypocrites and liars, you know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't fuck with him. Well, in the case of Cooley, he's a hypocrite and a liar, right? When the whole, don't date baby mothers, then what does he do? Go date this white woman with these kids, get married to her. You know what I mean? Then it's some borderline kind of like bed bucking coons type of behavior, right? Then he started a debate with the black Hebrew Israelites. Sorry, I mean to call them, but the Hebrew Israelites, right? Or the Israelite, a group of Israelites, I guess would be better to just call them that, right? A group of Israelite camps. And he started a debate with them. And I know that his thing with them was because they talk about the biblical implications of interracial, inter-ethnic marriages and stuff, right? Which is in the Bible. And I'm sure that, kind of rubbed him the wrong way because he's married to this white woman. And so, yeah, so you get these people that are hypocrites and liars, right? And then my thing with the guy, Marquette, like I said, I wouldn't like these guys. But then he goes on, he says some things that are true, and then he goes on to embrace Myron, which is ridiculous. I mean, many words I could place there, but anybody that embraces Myron Gaines as intelligent and swears allegiance to him, this is my boy, we're great friends. He goes on to say that in this podcast, how they're great friends. And then even after he critiques Myron for being, saying some egregious shit about black people, right? Making ridiculous, unsubstantiated, unintelligent claims, he goes on to call Myron intelligent. So you're contradicting yourself. And you're being a hypocrite and kind of a liar when it comes to this guy. So then it begs the question, why are you doing it? What are you getting from Myron Gaines? You see? Everything's about questions and answers, right? So the only thing I can think of is these three guys are agents. That's the point I'm making. Like, these three dudes are agents. They working together. They have some type of, under some type of government program, right? Or whatever. Like, and which makes sense. I mean, it's nothing new. What they're doing is nothing new, right? Under the sun. The guy, Ross Baraka, his father, the photographer for Martin Luther King, the guy that infiltrated the Black Panthers, a couple of motherfuckers, right? Got Fred Hampton killed. So when you see this type of thing, it doesn't make sense. You got to ask yourself, what's really going on, right? Barack Obama, right? Like, black people need to realize, like, there's a lot of tricks being played on different levels, and social media is one of them too, quite obviously. Like they said, Martin Hill has an agenda. So do they, obviously, right? Because nobody, it's weird that could critique Myron Gaines like this, but at the same time swear allegiance to him, right? We have an unbreakable friendship or some bullshit like that. And Myron is a weak weasel, a fucking weasel who would probably sell these two guys out at the drop of a dime, right? Obviously, the way he talk about black people, he don't give a shit about these two characters. You see what I'm saying? So you ask yourself, what is the synergy? What is bringing them together like this? But anyway, I'm gonna let the rest of this play.
Act out racism and then get privileges. I'm like, yeah, that would be white people, like that. And not even all white people. That's just like the empowered class of white people. There's some white folks they're poor today, and you go back 100, 200 years, their family was still poor. There's whites in Louisiana and Mississippi that have been poor since ever. But it's quite strange that he would suggest that blacks have somehow dominated American society. It's just the most bizarre commentary. And furthermore, when you talk about political correctness can have two different places that it lands. It can be within culture, which is irrelevant because there's no consequence, or it can be within government. We observe in the UK right now, if you say certain things, you might end up in jail for a social media post. That is a problem when it's within government. And those things are not the creation of blacks, because blacks don't have any power. Those are the creation of whites. And so, again, we're allowing him to skip by on these extremely flimsy arguments. And it's just so disappointing because you don't have any true intellectuals on this panel. Like, no one is picking these things up. I think Lamont has done a decent job at presenting himself. Mostly, I'm not very impressed with him, but I think he's done a good job here. And in terms of the 4 people on the panel, I think he's represented best.
This. Black people don't want to live around black people. I don't want to live around a bunch of black people. I move to neighborhoods where it's majority white because I know I'm safe. Now, this is uncomfortable reality that no one wants to say, so I'll say it for them.
I would have paused them right
Black
there
people-
if I was Piers. I would have said, you're Sudanese. Are there any Sudanese neighborhoods? Like, why wouldn't you move into a majority Sudanese neighborhood? Like, that's a conversation we should be having, right? Because you're Sudanese. You know, you said blacks are bad. Fair enough. Like, me personally, I haven't lived in a black neighborhood since I moved out the ghetto. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, same here.
You heard me? And I wouldn't move back in unless it's Silver Spring, Maryland, which is a very affluent black neighborhood. And if I had kids, that's certainly where I would want to be among other black people, because my kids are black and I don't want them to be discriminated against. But moreover, it would be completely appropriate to say, hey, you're Arab, you're Sudanese. Would you move into a Sudanese neighborhood? And if so, where are they? And if you say there aren't any in America, then say, well, will you move back to your country? And the question is, why is no one asking this? Like, it's like weird because he's being treated as either an honorary black man or an honorary white man, and he is neither. It's like we're ignoring what he is. It's like the biggest elephant in the room, and it's just so bizarre to me. It's like people are like dealing with the stage name and the stage presence rather than the substance of the man.
Yeah, and I think that this part of the conversation it's less about race, because I understand what Myron is.
So let me stop that right there. So he gave a scathing critique of Myron and pointed out perfectly all the problems with Myron Gaines as this Somalian agent, right? At the same time, you saw him prior to that, I believe, say how, you know, him and Myron are great friends, and I think he'll say it again, right? And how great, friends they are and all of this. So it's not like he doesn't know. He's not aware. He doesn't have a full, he's not intelligent enough to comprehend and understand the problem with Myron Gaines. But again, you like swore allegiance to this guy, right? Like, this is my friend, we 10 toes down, whatever. Okay. That's my good friend, and that's my boy. Okay, got you. But you do know he's problematic. Oh, yeah, but I don't have no friends like that. If I was friends with Myron Gaines and I had saw this interview, I would no longer be friends with Myron Gaines. Probably. It would strain our friendship. I couldn't critique him like this and then turn around and then break bread with him, right? So it begs the question, why are these two dudes so loyal to Myron Gaines? Anybody? Right? Why? And Myron has done some horrendous shit. He's worn KKK outfits and talk shit or whatever, about black people. I mean, yeah, anyway, so the only thing I could come up with was these guys are agents. They in bed together on some type of agents, some industry plant. So anyway, I'm gonna let this rock some more before I wrap up.
Saying where he's saying that, I wouldn't move in a black neighborhood and stuff like that. The underlying thing of what he's saying is the values that people share. So it's like, okay, you wouldn't want to live in an area where people have degenerate values, where, the woman is the one working, the man is the one at home. Like, it's this one comedian, he made a funny joke. He was like, when it's not safe when you walk into a neighborhood and you see no women on a porch and stuff, and you see men that's, riding their bike around during the daytime. That's probably not a safe area. But if you go to holds those views as well, But let's continue on. But before I do, Marquette, you got anything on that?
No, I agree with you. I think that was
Okay.
a very good explanation.
Cool. Let's move on.
People commit a lot of crimes. A majority of the violent crime committed in the United States is committed by a small percentage of people, and they tend to be black men. Look, the reality is the reality. People don't want to say it, but the political correctness and being nice and not wanting to tell the truth is precisely this problem. And the reason why you're seeing all the support for Metcalf and Shiloh, etc., is because white people have not been able to step up and say what they want to say for a very long time because of what I said before, systemic, organized, where they don't take accountability for their decisions.
What's that word that they bleeping out? Don't say it, but is he talking about Jews or something? I don't know what it is. What's that word?
Idea.
Bring in Ricky to respond. Ricky.
You know what? Let's move it on to the part where that explosion happened on the panel where they both got irate, where everybody on the panel got irate and period.
All right, Mark Lamont Hill, your last words on this.
This repeated use of the word, I think, first of all, I want to just register that as offensive, particularly as someone who doesn't identify as a member of that community and who is not, right? I think that's incredibly
I'm the definition of African American. I'm the definition of African American.
And troublesome, and to as a Sudanese American or an outsider.
Wait, Marquette, did you catch that? Are they talking about? Is Mark Lamont Hill talking about identifying as the N-word?
I think he was talking about being able to speak on behalf of blacks, and then he was basically saying, Myron, you're an outsider. You're not really a part of this. And then Myron was facetiously saying, well, I am the definition of an African American.
FBA, that's right.
Using African American, the very technical term, the same way that Elon Musk is an African American, I think is a bit disingenuous. But the bigger issue here, I think, is that, you know, this idea of equating of one side to the other side often loses track of this issue of power. To use his example, when black people stand up and say, hey, let's build our own stuff. Hey, let's have a black power movement. That is not the same as a white power. I'll let you speak uninterrupted. Let me finish, please, my Sudanese brother. So when a black person says, hey, let's preserve our culture, I have no problem with Italians or Irish people or anyone else saying let's preserve our culture. But when we don't talk about ethnicity, but actual race, and when white people say let's preserve whiteness, it's an exclusionary practice. It's about preserving laws and practices and tactics that do harm to other people. A black power movement was about opening stores and building businesses. A white power movement was a white power. That's the giga. A white power movement was about something very, 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 very different. A white power movement included lynchings and included Ku Klux Klan, etc. So let's not pretend that these are opposite sides of the same coin. When white people say, let's save our country, and even using the language of our country, when black people built this thing, when you say that, you're talking about forcing people out of the country. You're talking about laws that discriminate. You're talking about doing harm to people. Let's not pretend these are the same thing, just like these GoFundMe campaigns are not the same thing. I'm okay if everybody gets out of the GoFundMe industrial complex. I'd love that. But a grown white woman berating and calling the N-word to a 5-year-old autistic black child. And
so here I would give it to Mark Lamont Hill because he has the ability to differentiate things. Because he is stating the facts on both sides and the differences between the Shiloh calling a little black kid the N-word and the difference of, you know, the Carmelo Anthony situation. And I don't think anyone on a panel is arguing this point either. And he mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast as well, and no one really pushed back on that. I would say probably because they have no pushback. But we got Mont and Deja since
a white power movement was about something very, 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 very different. A white power movement included lynchings and included Ku Klux Klan, etc. So let's not pretend that these are opposite sides of the same coin. When white people say, let's save our country, and even using the language of our country, when black people built this thing, when you say that, you're talking about forcing people out of the country. You're talking about laws that discriminate. You're talking about doing harm to people. Let's not pretend these are the same thing, just like these GoFundMe campaigns are not the same thing. I'm okay if everybody gets out of the GoFundMe industrial complex. I'd love that. But let's not pretend that supporting someone for a fair trial is the same thing as supporting a grown white woman berating and calling the N-word to a 5-year-old autistic black child. And
so here I would give it to Mark Lamont Hill because he has the ability to differentiate things. Because he is stating the facts on both sides and the differences between the Shiloh calling a little black kid the N-word and the difference of, you know, the Carmelo Anthony situation. And And I don't think anyone on a panel is arguing this point either. And he mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast as well, and no one really pushed back on that. I would say probably because they have no pushback. But we got Mont and Deja sends in $5. Shout out to y'all, by the way. You guys are too, and they give me a compliment in the beginning, so it's only right that I share a compliment back to him. He's a smart individual, as everyone knows in the chat, and I don't think he gets enough credit. This is one of we speak behind the scenes all the time, and
so let me say something right here, right? The thing about disinfo or misinformation agents, they can't be totally ridiculous, right? Or totally stupid and ridiculous in most cases, right? Like these two characters right here, right? And Myron Gaines, Candace Owens, etc., right? It's just like, to be credible as an agent, you can't be totally stupid. You can't just sit around and just spew nonsense constantly, because you'll run out of road very quickly and people will be like, all right, I'm not gonna listen to this shit. So it has to be like, in a lot of cases, it has to make sense up until a certain point, right? But then you gotta look for the curveball. So, like with a Candace Owens or Marquette Devon or this guy Cooley or Myron Gaines, right? Or Barack Obama or anybody like that. You can't be totally ridiculous, because nobody will pay you any attention. They'll be like, man, this is total bullshit. So you may get 90% of what seems to be intelligent content or an intelligent person talking. Like George Carlin said, you like, okay, that makes sense. And then you be like, okay, this guy's bullshit. Like these characters. I was listening to him for a while, and then you started catching the curveball, right? Like when the guy Cooley, I may turn this off. I think I had enough of them. But when the guy Cooley was saying he, don't date single mothers, and then he comes out, he's dating this white woman, right? Kind of simping, dating this white, cooning, simping, dating this white woman who has kids, but he's giving guys dating advice, right? Don't date women with kids. So what's so special about this white chick? So that's suspect on two levels, right? Okay, you letting this white chick get away with something extra, so you kind of cooning a little bit, and then you simping for her, and she got kids, and you said don't date a woman with kids, a single mother. Okay, you done right there. You're a hypocrite and a liar. And this ain't something that happened 10 years ago. This is something you're doing right now. So you have no credibility on no level, right? So that's what I mean. Like, you might get, 60, 70, 80, 90, 95% out of these guys. And then boom, here comes the curveball. So then you have to ask yourself, what else is going on, right? Same thing with this guy, Marquette Devon, right? Like I said, I want to like these guys, right? Because they ADOS or whatever. You come out of my ethnic group, my people or whatever, so-called. Of course, I'm not going to hate on you. I want to see you do good. I want to see you, help people whatever. But then it's the same thing. You're doing good, you're saying all the right things, and then boom, Myron Gaines comes up. Marvin, who was a total crash out. There's nobody. I was watching O'Shea Duke Jackson. He was talking about that shit, talking about Myron today. And he said it. He said Marvin Gaines is a total fucking crash out. So Marvin Gaines, total crash out, total FBA ADOS hater. But here comes a guy, the Saint, Marquette Devon. That's Marvin's my friend, right? We got this bond, and we swear allegiance to this guy literally. I said, okay, that doesn't make sense. That's what I mean. So you get the 90% truth, and all of a sudden, here comes the curveball. I said, okay, that doesn't make sense. And the guy, he gives no explanation, right? It doesn't make sense when somebody can explain to you, right, down with laser precision, the problem with Myron Gaines, but then turn around and swear allegiance to him as a friend or whatever. And I kept scratching my head. I said, okay, there you go. Right? You've been put in place to legitimize somebody like Myron Gaines, or you guys are legitimize. So you know what I mean? Start to see the curveballs coming with the agents. And then Myron Gaines, I mean, like I said, he's a crash out. So it's obvious what he's up to. And Mark Lamont Hill goes on to point that out. I'm going to play a little bit of that, and then I'm going to wrap this up.
When I look at Marquette, I'm like, man, we're similar in so many ways, but you actually read books. I read no books. I was like, you know,
Exactly.
my intelligence just came from, I guess, genetics. Yours came from genetics too, but you actually went to college, got a degree, and you read some books. So as a man, you know, man to man, you got to respect it. And I think he's a smart brother, and a lot of people can learn from him. And it's not to say that we agree on 100% of things. I'm sure we have some disagreements, but it shows the friendship and the character when you can put little things aside, maybe where you can have a little different perspective on something. You can start a business and really get stuff done. And I think it's showing here on the podcast where, yielding to Marquette to really give y'all this game. You know what I'm saying? Because I have things and a perspective to speak to, but he's so articulate. Let him, get this game from him.
I appreciate you, man.
I'm not gonna, it's
in the house, right? Got DAM now, which is unfortunately something common that single Black mothers who are frustrated and exhausted say to their kids. They're very vulgar, but a lot of the I don't want to say insults, but when they're chastising their children, Black women say, "Get your Black ASS." Doesn't that almost sound racist when you think about it? Like if you were a white person, you said, "Get your Black ASS," you'd be like, "Whoa!" And all that is the Black person adopting the language of the overseer. It's the Black person adopting the language of their enslaver. And it's trickled down and survived generation upon generation. So they need reprogramming. But I say that to say this. Black people abuse themselves with the language of the enslaver. For white folks to say, hey, I want to join in on that is really bizarre and peculiar. There are a lot of white folks who might say it with no malicious intent because it's in a rap song. Me personally, I don't care if someone says it, if they're white, Asian, Latino, I don't care at all.
Facts.
I grew up in a hood that was half Mexican, half Black, and my Mexican homies grew up among us, eating the same food, speaking the same language. So I'm no more offended with them saying that than if I was teasing them or even dead serious, like, hey, way, we grew up among one another. And I know that they're not trying to say anything offensive. I think it's sad when Black folks get mad at a white and Asian, a Latino who's saying the N-word, N-I-G-G-A, harmlessly, because that's one of the people who may be your most likely ally.
So let me stop that right there. Maybe that's the curveball, right? Where he starts saying, these other groups are your allies, right? And they can call you niggers. Because it's just nigger, N-I-G-G-A, right? It's not with the hard R or whatever, right? And he grew up around these Mexicans and these other groups. The area he's talking, this is what he's talking about. They were these Mexicans were firebombing Black people. His so-called friends, this rainbow coalition that he's trying to convince you about. Right? He comes with this curveball right here. Speaking of curveballs, right? Where he starts talking that we are the world, rainbow coalition. He grew up around these people, let them call you nigger. They don't mean it like that. It's with an A. And don't, tell them don't do that. Let them do it. They're your friend. Then speak for yourself, homie. What he doesn't tell you is, and if he's showing these two dudes just went on to talk about how intelligent they are, that these people here talking about are attacking black people regularly, right? The amount of anti-black racism amongst these Asians and these Hispanics. I mean, they literally have firebombed black neighborhoods to get the black people out. I mean, literally like the KKK. These are the people that he's saying, well, sorry that they call you nigger. They don't mean it like that. They mean it with an A, not an R. What the fuck you know what they mean it with? What you at? Syntax? Like, hold on, let me get out my syntax detector. This Mexican or this Indian or whoever this is, let me get my syntax detector out. That was an A. That wasn't an R. That was A, right? Oh, okay. Oh, homie, buddy, friend. You know, how do you know what they mean? They're not from your community. If it was a black person, it's different. When I'm really black, I'm not talking about Myron Gaines. I'm talking about ADOS. But he wants you to normalize that kind of thing amongst Mexicans and Hispanics and Asians and Indians and whatever, right? Not telling you that these groups, I mean, there's a tape. He's from out, I think he was saying he lived in California amongst these people. There's a tape with the head of the Los Angeles City Council, Nori Martinez, where they were talking about how the Hispanics were conspiring against black people politically. So you got these people conspiring against you politically to block you from jobs, resources, etc., calling you monkeys secretly on tapes, firebombing your homes. But this guy is telling you it's all right for them to call you nigger, but it's an A, it's not an R. Use your syntax detector, your grammar detector, make sure it's an A and not an R, and that they're your friends and your allies, and you don't want to isolate them. I'm just saying, like, that's extremely naive for somebody that claimed to be highly intelligent. But this is the same guy that swore allegiance to Myron Gaines. Need I say more? Let's continue.
Outside of your racial category, and you're turning them into an enemy, wherein there's people like Nerd Fuentes that actually hate your guts, and you're overlooking them but getting mad at the guy who lives in your neighborhood or the guy who's a friend of yours or a colleague of yours, and you're getting mad at the person that's actually innocent. It's really sad and strange. But at the end of the day, the cloaking strategy of these white supremacists, what they'll do is they say it's about freedom of speech. It's not about freedom of speech. It's really about freedom for you to say things that are hateful so that you can create a nucleus around which you can bring in and organize other hateful whites to eventually do violence to black and colored people.
And it's funny because I actually had I was doing a live stream, and people know that I do my live debates. I had some weird character. He was on the Jubilee episode before. I think he may have been on the episode. I'm not offended by, you using the N-word, but maybe we can get to that point. But he's a white guy, and he was calling Myron the N-word and some other people. And I said, listen, I'd never met Myron in my life, but I highly doubt that you would call him that word to his face. I say that to say, we all experience some type of.
I seen Myron boxing on. Trust me, I seen Myron. I'm an older dude, but I seen Myron boxing on camera. Trust me. That's some of the worst his hands. Nah, the dude probably would have no trouble out of him. He looks uncoordinated. Looked like he couldn't punch his way out of a wet napkin, right? Myron probably wouldn't be a problem. These dudes, I swear to God, this dick riding Myron thing, I'm not sure. Like I said, these guys got to be agents. I really don't know what this is about. Dick riding Myron Gaines, right? This dude, he's talking about Myron gonna get that dude some work. There's a video. Like, don't take it from me. Go watch the video. It's a video of Myron Gaines working out. I think he's like with a guy on a punching bag in a gym or doing something. Dude, trust me, I boxed. You know what I'm saying? I'm a hand-to-hand combatant, right? Work with weapons and everything, right? Of all kinds, particularly knives, right? And boxing, right? Hand-to-hand combat, you know. Myron Gaines, I watched him. This dude couldn't fight his way out of a fucking wet napkin. But he says that, I guess maybe he didn't see that video of Myron Gaines. Talking about somebody should be concerned with Myron. Nobody should be concerned with Myron at all. He is not a problem. He might be in shape, but that's about it. That's about it, right? Maybe he works out, he's in shape. He is no combatant, right? Anyway, let's continue.
Clowns that use the word and they're not really about that life. And they're not about that life, meaning that they're not ready to deal with the consequences. Because if you call me the N-word, if you call me a mother effer, if you call me any insult, it doesn't mean that I'm going to react to it. But, you know, it's like, why do it to provoke a reaction? Because I may just have a day where it's like, you know.
Yeah, like I think my mic was muted, but Marvin Gaines is not about that life. Right? I don't know why these dudes are defending Myron Gaines, right? It's a video with Myron, and I think my mic was muted. I was talking about that. Myron Gaines, you look at that video, he's not a combatant, right? Like I'm a hand-to-hand combatant. I use, I practice with knives, particularly bladed weapons, boxing, martial arts. Myron Gaines is definitely not. I watched him. And I can watch somebody and I can tell if they're any good. Now the guy Marquette may be an issue. I've seen him. He looks like he has some skill in that area, right? But Marvin Gaines, none whatsoever. You know what I mean? None whatsoever. He couldn't fight his way out of a wet napkin, right? But here he is defending Myron Gaines again, right? Talking about what somebody wouldn't say to Myron. Trust me, he's not a problem. I've seen him. You know, if anybody got a little bit of skill and they get into it with him, they would probably, knock him out easy. Anyway, let's continue.
You know what? I'm reacting to everything. Everything is going up. You never know. It be like that, right?
Yeah,
Why would
like
you
that.
use a word to insult someone? It's stupid. So I checked that white guy on a podcast, and he apologized and stuff like that. But I say that to also say that, we're not coming at Myron here. Like, Marquette just expressed that, him and Myron are friends. I've never met the man, and I even stuck up for him when some random dude was coming at him on my stream. So it's all love here, man. Let's continue on.
Well, go on then, say it. Say
you
the
will
M.
not have
Go on,
free
go on. Say the M word. Go on.
No.
Hang on.
Invite. No. I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word, because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here. You and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and to ask her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand.
So one, on that part, you got to give him some credit on the ending part, the tail ending of that. If it was a Jew up here, you would not, Pierce, you would not be pressing, you would never do it. You would never press another person to use a Jewish slur word to a panel if a person was on a panel that was a Jew. You would never do it, Pierce. So that part of what Lamont Hill said, the ending was facts. The other stuff was an emotional rant. Like I said, when it comes to this character, Mark Lamont Hill, he's not anyone that, I'm fond of at all. I would agree with Marquette that he had some of the most base takes on here, but I already told y'all he's feminine. He's a soft man. He's a
Tom term is supposed to be applied to other Black Americans who, or foundation, whatever you want to call them, who betray one another. So you couldn't rightfully apply that to Myron because he's not a foundational Black American. I get his point though. The outburst was disappointing. Primarily, and people act like showing emotion is just always a bad thing or it's always feminine. This is actually stupidity. And most of the internet is stupid because to have emotion is to be human. To utilize emotion is to be strategic. And there's different types of emotion. So his emotion was on the victim side. He could have been aggressive and said, hey, I hope that, people who are watching organize and do this consequence to you. And he could have yelled and screamed and drummed up emotion and tried to pass off that emotion and that spirit, that fighting spirit into some viewers who maybe really rock with him and said, hey, when you guys see so-and-so or you see so-and-so, do something to them. And that would have been really meaningful and I could respect it. But to say, you're going to hurt me, don't say the word, it's like, bro, knock it off. Are you weird? But the answer is yes. Yes, he is weird. He's intelligent, but he's one of those folks that are, David's always been looking out for me, so I want to return the favor. So that's already been done. That wouldn't be something I would sit on. True.
You don't have any bad intent.
All right, guys. So this ran way longer than I wanted it to, but I wanted to try to play as much of this as I could. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, get my final thoughts. So I think I pretty much laid out the case of what I was saying about these three guys. It was something very, the weird synergy between that guy, Cooley, the Saint guy, and their association with Myron Gaines, right? This Somali guy, right? This Somali immigrant who was extremely hostile toward Black people. I've never seen him say a kind thing about any Black person, except maybe the ones he may say something about, like these guys who are basically propping him up. You see? And so the question is, why would, these two guys be, if he's their so-called FBA, ADOS, whatever, why would they be propping up somebody who's clearly hostile, in a xenophobic sense against their particular group, their lineage, right? And like I said before, the only thing I can come up with is these guys they like some plants or some agents. They got something like that going on. It's the only thing that really makes sense, right, when you look at it. And so when I was looking at it, that's what the first thing intuitively that popped in my mind. And I guess in the end, you have to wait to see what the real agenda is. But I tried to point out some of the key points about them, their relationship, and what they've been doing from a misinformation, disinformation standpoint, and put it all together so you can kind of see what I saw when I was watching this. Anyway, that's all I got for now.